Hello, welcome. I'm Saeri Wilde, and I'm here with Nova Ohm, and this is the Human Design Foundations class for the free week we're offering for our Human Design Laboratory, which is a whole course model that we just birthed, and we're super excited to share it with you. So Nova is going to be leading this today, and I'm going to start off with guiding us in some orienting in your physical reality and in your, which includes your body, first of all. And this is to support you in, being in a good place to receive whatever information is coming to you through this teaching today, whether you're here live or on the recording. So let's get started. This first one is literally orienting in your space. So what we're going to do is we're going to look in each direction. Let your eyes rest on an object. So you can just start with straight ahead. You breathe, look at the object, and then just report reality mentally. So I'm looking at a chip on a ceramics piece. And then let your eyes drift in another direction. We're going to go for all 6 directions and another. Cobweb on the ceiling, another direction. 2 more. Last one. And ease back to center. Hand to opposite shoulder. I'm going to look at your hand and stroke your arm, shoulder to fingertips. Breathing and reporting reality mentally. So I see my hand touching my arm. There are my freckles. Switch sides. All right, ease back to center and either close your eyes or soften your gaze so you're not looking at anything in particular. And breathe some big hellos or gentle hellos or whatever quality of hellos your body is needing today through your body. So let your breath just expand. And this is inhales and exhales through your bones and your connective tissue. And you can mentally, spiritually, energetically just let that hello ring through your body. And just checking in if there's any intention or awareness you have about why you're here today. And take a deep breath, inhale and exhale into that. We'll give one more for anybody going like, I don't know what it is. Like, just, okay, I don't know. I'm here. And welcome. All right, I'll turn it over to Nova. Thank you, everyone.
Much. Thank you, Saeri. I needed that. I'm feeling really nervous about this class because so many people signed up and I was feeling all this expectation stuff come up in my mind because I have an open root, and I'm excited to talk a bit about that today, the open root in particular, how that shows up. But yeah, this is really grounding and delicious, so thank you. I am so excited to do this class. So let's get started. Oops. One second, I need to screen share. Try to just open it right back up.
I want to invite everyone to keep breathing throughout this. There's a mechanism that I've seen that it's like our conditioned survival mind will shut down our breath to maintain survival narratives. Bless its little mind heart. So it's like some of this might be pretty intense for your body. That might feel surprising to you. And I just encourage you to, like, anytime you're feeling just kind of like in your head, running a story or feeling intensity in your body, to just give yourself a nice, smooth, grounding breath.
Thank you, Saeri. All right, so here we go. We are here talking about the foundations of human design. This is a part of the Human Design Laboratory. I am Nova Ohm. I am a human design professional. I've been studying and experimenting with my design and gathering the experiences of others for 10 years now. And I'm 8 years into professional experience with human design. So helping others live and learn their design through different kinds of chart readings, coaching classes, courses, traveling the world, bringing human design to events through an experience I call embodiment, which is the in-aura experimentation of this information. In case you're curious, here's a bit about my design. I am a 1-3 emotional tribal manifester. I'm on the racks of consciousness, and my variables, I have a left mind, right body. Some of this stuff might be over your head, and that's fine. I just wanted to share it for the people that do know these things. Some of this we'll get into in this course, and some of it's for another course. This course is brought to you by the Continuum. This is not a paid ad. The Continuum is this incredible mentorship network that Saeri birthed, and I was the midwife of. It's a mentorship network, curated community, experiment playground, nest for the Human Design Laboratory and other laboratories. And we also host Wayshore events and more. Saeri, is there anything that you want to share about the Continuum before I move on to the next slide?
There's usually so much. I feel a little blank right now, but I just feel so full and sparkly being here with you and seeing this. Thank you.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you. Blessing. So today we're going to be talking about, these are the things we're going to be talking about. What is human design? How can human design help you? Chart anatomy, centers, inner authority, types, profile, real life application, and then we'll go into some Q&A. More informing. So I want to be clear, this is an intro class. This is the basics. We're beginning into the foundations. So there's a depth that we're not going to go into here, but this is a overview of the foundations. We're going to do a Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions, please feel free to write them down and we will get to them at the end. And then we're also going to be doing open labs Wednesday and Friday, where we're going to be digging in a little deeper into some of these things through your questions and through whatever interests and topics come up in those open labs. And then there's also, in the month of July, we're going to be digging really deep through a paid opportunity. So all of these are opportunities to dig deeper, but this class is here to get this started. It's the entry point into the depth. So what is human design? It is a system founded by Ra Uru Hu in the 1980s. It's a synthesis of old and new modalities. So when I'm talking about old modalities, we're talking about astrology, the chakra system that you'll see in human design that we There's an understanding that we evolved from the traditional 7-centered chakra beings into 9-centered beings. So see 9 centers in the human design chart. So also the Kabbalah Tree of Life and the I Ching. So it's a synthesis of those 4 modalities, old modalities. And then when I say new modalities, mostly talking about our understanding of a lot of things through science, different sciences. And I'm not a science person, I'm more of a practical person, but there's physics and biology and genetics and all kinds of interesting stuff that, you know, is a part of all this. Human design is called the science of differentiation because it's all about seeing what makes us unique, what makes us different from each other so that we can honor ourselves. And then as we learn about other people's uniqueness, we're able to honor them also. It's an experiential science, so it's really here to be experienced and experimented with. It's not a belief system. It's not something to believe in. It's something that you're here to experiment with and try out for yourself and find your own truths with. It's a very practical system. So next, we're going to talk about how human design can help you. It helps you by getting you to be able to know yourself, you know, what you are and are not made for, so you can really step into the power of who you are and drop the things that you're not made for. It gives you the opportunity to identify potential themes of struggle and suffering. And we'll talk about some of those themes in this call today. And it gives you an opportunity to know others, why people are the way that they are, or even just trusting that everybody is different and unique because we know that people are made uniquely. Even if we don't know their design, we can trust that they're just made differently. It also gives us an opportunity to understand and foresee challenges in relationships when you put charts together and you can see all kinds of things. So we can also, it also helps us understand environmental influences, why we're different with different people, or when animals are around, right, or plants, you know, how they impact our system. And also the transits, the short and long-term themes around us. You know, when transits are happening, the whole world is feeling it. And then there are infinite applications, ways that this can help you that you can apply it to. So personal growth, career, livelihood, life purpose, and various types of relationships, romance, parenting, family, community, and more. So first thing we're going to talk about is the chart anatomy. Okay, when we're looking, oh no, my light fell. My daughter tried to climb up a little bit. Okay, I guess we're not doing the light. Okay, so when we're looking at a chart, we're looking at, I'm going to explain the different things we're looking at here. So on the sides are what I'm calling the planetary key. So they have the planets, and it starts with the sun, then the Earth, Moon, North Node, South Node, Mercury down to Pluto. So those are the planetary keys. The body graph is the chart that you see in the middle. So we're looking at Ra Uruhu's chart. He's the founder of human design. He has certain things defined. Everybody has the same system. What's colored in is going to be unique per person. So what we see colored in is called definition, and what is white is what is undefined or open. So those are the places that we receive and pick up energy from others. The places that are colored in are the places that are who we are. They're what makes us who we are. So we can look at the planetary keys and we can see that there's numbers there. And if you look at the top number on the right-hand side, that red one is a 61. And if you look at the body graph up in the top center, the white center up at the top, you'll see the 61 activated there. Each of the gates in the keys activates a different gate in the body graph. So when you have the red numbers, you'll see the red lines coming off of them. And when you see the black numbers, you'll see black lines coming off of them. If they're red and black striped, that means you have them on both sides. The black side, the personality side, is based on the time of your birth. The red side is based on, according to human design, about 88 days before you're born when your soul enters your body. So we've got the two sides coming together that create what we call the quantum chart. So you've got the gates activated. If you have two gates activated on either side of the line there, it activates what we call the whole channel. It's a channel. And when you have an activated channel, it activates the centers on both sides. So that's kind of the basics of the chart there.
Hey, darling, I want to pipe in here real quick.
Yes, please.
I mean, it was just like hitting me like, oh my gosh, she's saying all the stuff about it. And I just want to appreciate you for putting this together. It's so thorough and so clear. And then I just want to offer a hello to everybody else. Like, yeah, this is like the basic stuff that like when you look at the chart, you're like, what am I looking at? You know, that overwhelm when you first see a human design chart. And I just love that you just broke it down like that so simply. So we've got the conscious in the black and the unconscious in the red. And then you see that corresponding in the channels and the gates in the chart.
Thank you, love. Thank you so much. I appreciate you being a part of this. Thank you. So now we're going to start getting into the body graph. We're going to talk about the centers. We're going to start with the centers. I want to start with the explaining a little bit about how the centers work. So we've got pressure centers at the top, the head center down at the bottom of the root center. And energy enters into the body through those pressure centers and moves all aiming for the throat to be expressed. Okay, so we've got these different centers, and I'm going to go through them. Saeri's going to help me, thank goodness, so I can talk more about them. I do better talking than just presenting. So we're going to talk about these centers. We're going to talk about the energy of the center itself, and we're going to talk about what that looks like if somebody's undefined there or open, and if somebody is defined there. Okay. So we'll start up at the head, and we'll do the head and ajna leading to the throat. And then we'll go down to the bottom and start at the root and move our way up, leading to the throat again. Okay. So from the head, with the head, right? The head is where thinking and mental pressure happens. It's where we gather up things to think about. So for me, I'm defined there. Saeri and I both are defined there. In fact, we have the same channel. So with that head center, we have certain things that we think about because we're defined. We have certain things that we think about, certain things that we, are, wondering about, curious about, whatnot. And then the ajna, if you have the head defined, you always have the ajna defined. The ajna is where we make sense of those thoughts. Okay. So for Saeri and I, we have the head to the ajna. So we have these certain things we think about, certain ways we understand them. And then we move that energy down to the throat to be expressed. When you're, so Saeri, at this point, do you want to share anything about that? And before we talk about what it's like to be open?
Oh, yeah. Actually, I have something that might just integrate into talking about the openness with the head and the ajna. So like Nova said, she and I both have the head and ajna defined through the same channel, which is about abstract chaos to clarity. It's kind of like a circus rodeo kind of mind is how I experience it. And one of my teachers early on said, or a torture chamber. And so I think this is actually a really great opportunity. I love that you're starting with the head and the ajna because, and with us having this definition, because most people are not defined in these areas. Like there's a greater number who are undefined. So those of you who are undefined, if you're looking at your chart and you see white in those one or both of those top two centers, I just welcome you to feel into the quality that you might be feeling having Nova and I presenting here today. Like you might feel some pressure, but it's like we're like focusing in on what interests our minds. And if you're here, it's probably because you have a resonance with that. And, I noticed that when I was first experimenting with this, I had a boyfriend I was with when I first found human design, and he had an undefined head and ajna, and he was like a master at trivia. Like, and what I came to see is like he could just like pluck information out of the ether. It's just like all of this information was out there, and he didn't have consistent access to it, although there's immense pressure to be consistent mentally. But I mean, the facts he could pull out, that I just don't care. I don't care. I don't think about it, but and so I could actually look kind of stupid next to him sometimes. I mean, he was incredibly smart, but just like, I would be like, who cares? That fact about sharks you just pulled out of where? Like, so yeah, I love this because you can really just check in with, and I see people saying, yes, I know what you're talking about. You really do. If you're undefined in these areas, you have other people's questions and thoughts in your head, which is a great reason to not lead your life that way. So I mean, like I understand, like I have all this stuff that seems random or just like super weird that goes on in my head, and then I started to understand, oh, they're picking up on that. Like my daughter, like I try to be careful about what I think, literally, because she can literally read my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Yeah, for me, with my defined head and ajna, it's my only conscious channel. It's the only, we talked about the red and the black. It's the only channel that I have that's black. So it's like conscious for me. So I live a lot up in my head and ajna, and I've lived a lot in the not self of the defined head and ajna, which is about like really pushing and relying on that, you know, figuring things out and making decisions from there. And so when I came into more correctness around the head and ajna with the definition, I just let it do its thing, and it just moves energy in this way that it's literally made for. But it's really fun, like with my friends that are undefined or open in the head, and they will be, I have a little group chat with the three of us, and the two of them are open in the head, and only one of them's open in the ajna, but they think about so many things, and I just have to just be like, okay, and just like skim through it and move on, because it's like of no interest to me. But they can get on these kicks with each other where they just go off on these, crazy tangents, thinking about things and exploring things and whatever. And it's really fun to witness, even if I have no personal interest in it myself, because I have certain things I'm here to think about or not. So you had talked about the open head, and how so 70% of the population are open or undefined there in the head, and 50% in the ajna. So it's very common for people to be open and undefined there. Yeah, we live in a world where more often people are picking up, thoughts and ideas from other people, and yeah, so the challenge with this center when it's open, with the head center specifically, is thinking other people's thoughts and worrying about things that don't actually matter to you. And when you have an open head center, which means there's no activations in it at all, it's completely white with no gates activated. When you have it open, you don't even know what's important to think about. So that can be a challenge also. And so I always tell people, when we have these open centers, when you find yourself, like, it can be fun. It's like, it can be like an amusement park. Like, it can be fun to go ride the ride and, think the things and whatever, as long as it's not impeding on your life. If at some point you feel like there's something off about it, bringing yourself back in specifically into your definition, into, what grounds you, who you are. And we'll talk more again at the end of the center specifically. We'll talk about authority. That's the place to make decisions, not from this openness. So
yeah, I'd like to say that you're undefined or open is where you're taking in that conditioning from other people who have it, or the transits, and amplifying it. And if you're believing that it's you, that's going to put you in your not self theme, which will, Nova will go over. And if you're, but if you're aware of it, which is the point of all this, is just awareness, then you have this great opportunity for wisdom. Because, and and a lot of times you'll see great meditation teachers are the ones who have undefined head and ajnas, who are guiding people with, in their minds, because they've tasted all these different kinds of minds, and they can have this like greater wisdom about it to guide other people.
Tasted. I love that word. That's so delicious for open centers. I love that. So yeah, the undefined head is, thinking about things that aren't important to you. The ajna, when it's open, it's you, people that are open there, undefined there, you guys are made to see things from all different angles. You're not made for mental certainty. And so what happens when with the not self, right? The not self theme of the open or undefined ajna is um, trying to be mentally certain about things, but you're not made to be. You're made to be able to see things from every perspective and every angle. You're made to make decisions from somewhere else, somewhere in your body, not from your head and your mind. Even with Saeri and I having our defined up there, we're still not here to make decisions from there. It informs and gives us information mostly to help other people. But it's not here for us to make decisions for ourselves from. And then the throat is here for expression, the expression of those thoughts when we're coming from the head and the ajna. It's here to be the expression of those thoughts. There's these ways, depending on what channels you have activated from the ajna to the throat, these ways that you're here to speak and what you're here to talk about. So there's that. I'd like to move down to the root now, unless Saeri has something else you want to share before we.
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge, Nova has a defined throat as a manifester. I have an undefined throat. And I just have a little tip. I have a little tip for undefined throat people, because we feel this immense pressure to speak. And when you're with somebody and you're feeling that, and it can feel like, oh my gosh, I have to say this, like it's so important. But I found like this experiment, if you wait through it, watch other people say it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Saeri and I have this really fun way that we work together that is so yummy. We've done so many calls together and with, in groups and whatnot, hosted, various things. And we notice it over and over, even in personal calls between us, where I will be ready to say something or feelings and she'll say it. She'll pick it up and she'll say it. It's really interesting to watch the throat express, the open throat, undefined throats, express the things that the defined throats are here to say. I have another story. A friend of mine, we were at a women's circle and she had to get her little ones to bed, and so she was getting there late, and we were talking about how we self-care, how we take care of ourselves. And so she kind of came in, took her shoes off, sat down really quickly next to me, and all of a sudden it was her turn. And she has an undefined throat. She didn't have anything planned. She wasn't there, and she just said, I sleep. And all the moms were like, oh, yes, like that, and it was like, oh, she was speaking for the group, she was speaking, she didn't have time to really like center herself and fill in for herself. And so she absolutely just amplified the voice of the group. So yeah, it's really interesting to observe. So yeah, and then so I want to talk about the root center, and then we'll talk more about the throat when we get up to it, because the throat also is an action and manifestation. But yeah, so we'll get back to that also. All right, so the root center is the pressure to do. So we've got the head center, right? The pressure to like mentally, the mental pressure to like figure something out. The root is the pressure to do. So this one's a fun one for Saeri and I, because I'm undefined there and she is defined there. And so I can say for myself, when I'm with Saeri, even not in aura, but definitely in aura, but even when we're just on calls, like I really feel grounded with her root. I can feel her pressure. I can feel, and it feels really good and easy for me, thank goodness. She has a very clear clean energy for me. And so with her root center, I just feel really grounded. That's why I love when she starts the calls with these like, grounding and things like that, because it really, I can really feel into her pace, and it's a pace that feels good to me. But and all three of my kids are also defined in the root. And so I feel really grounded with them, and I've spent a lot of time with them. We homeschool, I've been a mom for 23 years. So it's been and my kids don't spend time with other family members, so they're always with me. So last year in the fall, I took off for like a week to go to the High Desert Human Design Conference. And it was the first time I had been away from my kids in like over a decade. And I was able to feel what my open root felt like, and I realized how ungrounded I felt. And it took a while to get like kind of calibrated there, because I was so conditioned by the root pressure in my home. So for me, with my undefined root, I have to be really cognizant of how much pressure I'm taking on, because with the undefined root, we have this not self theme of trying to hurry up and do things to make the pressure go away. And that will run our root ragged, and it's really bad for our adrenal system. We're really here to empty out that pressure and move at our own pace, at the pace that feels correct to us. Move at the pace that our authority is giving us. Do the things that our authority is a yes to, not what we're trying to hurry up and do to make the pressure go away from the root. Saeri, if you want to share how it feels with the defined root or add anything to that, I would love to hear what you have to share.
Yeah, this has been an investigation of mine for the last few years, just noticing the impact I have, how pressurized people feel who have undefined roots, and just letting that come into my awareness. Because for me, I'm just like, I'm like, whatever. And then people are like, oh my God, I feel so pressured, or people ghost a lot or disappear. And so the way that I relate to it is like the throat pressure, to the pressure to speak. And so the way that I've come to, I've been guided to guide my undefined root clients is, and to just relate with, my friends and people like Nova too, is like, if you can start to just like sit through that pressure and not act from it, then, you'll be returned to yourself, and you'll find that it does pass because it's not consistent for you anyway.
Yeah.
And then I also have just like, I started going back to yoga classes, and, I'm a yoga teacher since 2010. And I have just like a very developed practice in other people's classes. And I get this feedback from people who are practicing next to me. Like at the end of class, this happens all the time. They'll be like, I feel so grounded next to you. Thank you. So, that's something I think to be aware of for people who have defined roots, is like just how much you can affect the people around you and the way you're being with your root. If you're operating with a lot of urgency in your life, and then other people feel that, they feel it anyway, and the more work you do to actually be really grounded in your own grounding, that also translates to others, and they get the benefit of it without having to be yoked to it and hooked on you.
Yeah. And I will also say, because it is an undefined center, like it's, we amplify it too. So if there's, if I'm around, like if my kids are really excited about something, like we've done a lot of experimenting together because we've been doing this for a long time. But when they were younger, and they'd be like super excited about a new toy they wanted to get or something, and they'd be like, Mom, and they'd come bouncing in, and they're like, oh, can I get this toy? Or, can I buy this thing on Roblox or whatever it's called anyway? And I would have to be like, whoa, I can feel how excited you are. And I need to take a moment to like let this energy go before I can make a decision, before I can feel into what's the best way to proceed for myself. But with my kids, that was an excitement, right? But also people that are really like stressed out and they're in a rush, if they're defined, oh my gosh, that can just be so overwhelming to me. My oldest daughter has a defined root, and my grandson is undefined. And we were just talking the other day about it, because I was saying that he might be feeling some pressure from her. And she's like, yeah, but I'm not trying to pressure him. And I was like, right, but you have a defined root and he's undefined. And she's like, oh, right.
Our pressure.
Right. You just, yeah. I'm like, you don't know as a defined root person what it feels like as an undefined root. Like we just feel the pressure. And so it's just the quality of the pressure is what we're really looking for if we're around people with defined roots. It's the quality of the pressure, and making sure, I mean, everybody, it's good for everybody to get space away from people, to be in your own aura and empty out other people's energy. The root is one of the biggest ones that I have to really take space from. Like I said, I have all three of my kids are defined, and and we're together all the time. So it's really important for me to get space to myself so that I can really empty that root pressure. Because one of the things I've also noticed with my root is that if I'm feeling pressure and I'm in that space of, stressing out or freaking out because of it, it runs all of my centers ragged, even my defined ones. Like I have, multiple defined centers, and it will make all of them not work right. Like my emotions will be a mess. I have no connection to my intuition. I'll go overboard with my willpower. Like just so many things will my whole system will get completely off if my root center's off. So that's where that energy is coming in, and then it's dispersed through the body. So if it's off, how it's dispersing is going to throw everything else off. But if it's correct, then everything else is able to be correct too. Yeah.
I'm having this awareness here listening to you speak that, I hate to rush now. And I used to rush everywhere. Like I used to get speeding tickets all the time. And in addition, I have this channel that's, the design of being first. So like literally on the road, I was just trying to get ahead of like every single car on the I-5, like Canada to Mexico, people. Like it's insane. And I really got so many tickets, and then I was in sales, and I lived, I had this kind of broad territory that I had to drive through. And I really had all this time on the road to see like what it did to me. It's just that I was always like, I'm like always rushing.
Yeah.
And my mother did that to me too. And she and I had the same channel off the root to the spleen. So, I just really now, I don't like to rush. And it's really a priority in my life. And I'm constantly letting go of things in order to not rush. And I'll just like inform people I'm going to be late. I love to be on time with my defined ego, but it's not worth it to me,
Oh, I'm so grateful, literally. I'm so grateful.
Yeah. And people who are undefined really do feel that. I think that's a testament to like all these people who tell me how grounded they feel around me, because I have matured that in my own root.
Yeah. And I'll say too, I mean, it was interesting. There's a couple of things that came up for me in what you were saying. One of them was, when I'm driving down the freeway and a car pulls up behind me and it's going, it's like kind of tailing me, I feel so much pressure, and I need to decide in that moment what to do. And I used to speed up, and now I've decided that either I'm going to continue going the speed limit I am, or I'm going to scoot over and let them get by. And I don't have like a set way that I handle it. It just depends on the moment. But those are the ways that I handle that now. But I can feel the pressure when somebody pulls up. I can feel them wanting me to go faster. I can feel that pressure. It's really, there's so much that we pick up as open root people that we may not even be aware of. And that's what was coming up for me, when I saw all the numbers rolling in. It was like this pressure to like perform in some way. Like, what are their expectations going to be? What do I, this pressure to like do, in this way. And I spent the last 12 hours just being in my body and emptying that pressure. I watched a video years ago that was something about like, if you have an undefined root and you're feeling pressure, you have something that you need to do and there's a pressure about it, like what to do is to sit back and put your feet up and wait for the pressure to leave. And so I started literally practicing that. And I found that being able to move at my own pace is worth it. It's way more important. Yeah. So,
I'm
so
so
yeah.
glad you spoke to that, because like one of the concerns that I had when we were going through these slides is I was like, are we going to fit this all into 2 hours? Are you going to be able to do that, Nova? And so I want to acknowledge that you knew about yourself. You said, I always end on time.
Right.
Like I always do. I don't know how it happens. And so, yeah, there's just, you have a wisdom with that, you know, I trust.
I love that. Thank you. Really appreciate that. So speaking of, I think it's funny that we were like, oh, we're going to do this basic intro. We're not going to go deep. Like you and I are capable of not going deep. But we'll see how it all flows.
Yeah.
I want to say
really the meat, I think, of the foundations. So
yeah.
okay, like this is the inner dialogue I'm going through as we're pacing through this. It's like it makes sense to spend extra time on the centers, and then I think absolutely. We can pace through the rest of this pretty well and have time for questions.
It all works out. It just does. That's what I find every time I do sessions, chart readings, everything. It always just works out.
Yeah, I can be a little bit of a wild card though, so don't underestimate that.
What, you? So speaking of numbers, nobody said anything about numbers out of nowhere. I'm having a meme moment now. But anyway, I wanted to just share that the root center, 40% of the population are undefined there. So it's more common for people to be defined there than undefined. From there, I want to move up to the sacral center. So the sacral center is that red square, well, the only red square. And the sacral center is life force energy, and it's the physical mechanics of reproduction, which I don't want to get too much into in this, you know, but on this or whatever, but the life force energy part, you know, if you have this defined, you are a generator. So 70% of the population are defined here, 30% are undefined or open. And oh, one other thing I want to say about the root, when you have a completely open root center, no activations at all, it means that you don't know what to do with the pressure. And oftentimes people with completely open roots will just like kind of like plop down and become paralyzed, is what it is, until that pressure leaves. Which is different than for me with the undefined root, where I have this very strong urge to just race around and do everything quickly, like a Tasmanian devil. But yeah, so with the sacral center, right, it's life force energy. So we've got, you know, 70% of the population have this defined. It's this consistent access to life force energy generators. You know, you guys are what we call the builders of the world, because you have this energy. As long as your body is a yes, the sacral center has this mechanism that when it's a yes to something, when something is correct for you, it just floods you with this life force energy to do it. And generators have unending energy to do the things that they're a yes to, as long as they are a yes to it. And then for the rest of us that are undefined, Saeri and I both are undefined there. We're one of the other 3 types, which we'll talk about types in a little bit. But with the undefined sacral, we're not made to do work in the same way that generators are. We don't have the same access to that energy. We need a lot more downtime and a lot more rest. There's another concept when we talk about types. There's energy types and non-energy types. You know, and so the energy types are generators and manifestors like myself. And so for us, we have our own energy, right? Manifestors, we get bursts of energy, and then we need deep, deep rest to recover. And then we burst again, and then we have deep, deep rest. But projectors and reflectors need a lot more downtime because they don't have that energy that gives them those bursts. Now, you can have projectors that have motors defined, that when they get invited, it activates the energy of that motor, and they have some more energy than people that don't have them, you know, projectors that don't have motors defined. But as far as the sacral goes, this is the only energy that provides consistent energy. The other motors, like the root is a motor, right? And it gives adrenalized energy. So it like bursts of energy. Yeah. Saeri, is there anything that you want to?
Yeah, I just have one thing to say, and then I think we can move on from this one. That to me, I see a match between like the earth itself and generators and the sacral. And so like generators are literally creating like the life force frequency of this planet. Like they are a match to the planet. And that's a really big deal because like, you know, that's like the waters that we're all swimming in, you know? And so like a generator out of alignment is like living in frustration, they're not self-theme, is literally creating pollution, literally. And in alignment is creating this like purity in the field for satisfaction, which is what they're here for.
And because because 70% of the population are defined there, the other 30, we can't help but feel it, amplify it. I remember when COVID, exploded, whatever, in 2020. And I remember when the world shut down and the feeling in my body, like, holy goodness, it was like all the sacrals in the world were no longer like, doing sacral things. Like all of a sudden everybody was like, Choo. And I felt like this reset in my body and was hoping that's another story, but that like the world, that this would be a new way for the world to engage in sacral energy, because we have, all of us with the undefined sacrals, we are feeling all of it, amplifying it. So yeah. And
it is resetting. It's just
yeah,
there's a detox going on.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. And the thing too to keep in mind with the undefined sacral is to be aware if we're amplifying somebody else's sacral energy. Like I did a deconditioning detox with the sacral center by when I was around generators, I would take space before I answered questions because I noticed myself feeling like I was feeling their yes or no, their sacral response, as if it was my own. And so I started taking auric space from people and allowing that sacral yes or no to leave, and then feeling into my own authority for decision making. Because we can really take on that sacral center and try to act as if we are generators, or respond in some sacral way, or be amplifying somebody else's sacral energy, and we're really not here for that. Our authorities are going to be in other places in our body. The place we're here to make decisions from are not the sacral. So yeah.
And what a gift of the wisdom of the undefined sacral to stop biting on other people's responses that we sense or interpret. Because it's like, if we're amplifying that incorrectness in the other, it's just like it builds up, and then explodes. And otherwise it allows, generators to have the space to actually feel what their response is.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things also for us with the undefined is to remember that the not self theme for this one is not knowing when enough is enough. If we're amplifying somebody else's sacral energy, or we're just tuned into ourselves and we're not paying attention, we don't have that natural barometer of the sacral center to know when enough is enough. And so we can, really push things and not know when enough is enough. So it's really important for us to have the cognizance, to check in with ourselves. Like sometimes I will be working on something and I will, 7 hours will fly by and I haven't eaten, and I haven't, because I'm like so immersed in something. So it's really important for me. Like I usually will, embed times to check in on myself and get up and take a break from it for a minute and, feel into myself for whether I'm done, because I can just keep going and keep going. Yeah. So let's talk about the solar plexus next. So the solar plexus is where is the emotional center. So people that have a defined emotional center, which is about 50% of the population. It's 50-50 there. This will be your authority. And we'll talk about that in the next, in the next slides when we talk about the authority. But the solar plexus is a motor center, and it generates the energy of emotional waves. So people that are defined here, we have these, high day, times when we're feeling great, times when we're feeling like crap, rose colored glasses, shit colored glasses. We just ride these waves, right? And so for us, just knowing that we're here, once we get clarity, once we have ridden those waves and then we nestle down into a place of clarity, that's where we're here to make decisions. And this is, part of it is the, this is the authority of it, is that our truth lies in that clarity after. But just knowing for us as emotional people, if we're on the waves, it just means we're not at the, at the rest space yet. We're not at the calm, the clarity yet. And so to not take things too seriously when we're on those waves, and to also be aware that when we're around people that are open, they're going to be amplifying our waves and maybe feeling them like they're their own, and they can, feed it back to us, and, 1,000%. So to be cognizant, like for myself, if it feels correct, I like to just kind of be alone in my own space while I'm going through my waves. And then when I'm feeling, more clear, then I'm able to go out and, be around people without, knowing that I'm sending out and, that emotional energy. And then Saeri's undefined there, so she can share more about her experience with that, and, experience it with the defined too.
Yeah, so I've experienced a miracle in relation to my undefined solar plexus and emotional people. I started deconditioning the center with, before I had the context for it, back in 2008 when I was invited into to go to clairvoyant school, to psychic school, and they just were like, I don't like, everything you feel isn't yours. And so I went through a really intense deconditioning with that. During that time and prior to that time, I was like a crazy person. Like I was just all over the place. And I was a real hot mess, you guys. And then when I got to human design, that was 2014, I think. I was like, oh, this makes so much sense. And for a few years, I was really just like, emotional people, like, stay away, And I came to realize that, well, through the deconditioning, I actually have a totally different experience in my body of emotional people. Like things that would just send me off, and I'd be amplifying and feel like a crazy person. I just don't anymore. I'm actually pretty neutral. And I'll even I kind of use emotional people now to access my own emotions. I love getting on the waves, and emotional people are my favorite people now because they often have this actual groundedness in emotions because they're used to going through them. Whereas as an undefined person, I've had men I've been in relationship with, major relationships that are we have electromagnetics where we're creating an emotional center. They don't have that kind of experience with the emotions. I've deconditioned, they haven't. So when we're together, well, it's super hot and exciting and yummy, but they just spin out and they become crazy people. They can't handle it, add my defined, mind to the situation. And it is really, really crazy. So anyway, I've come to really appreciate emotional people. And I really want to share this message with especially the undefined solar plexus people, that because, we can just feel like, how do I even live in the world, or fuck those emotional people. And you really can come into wisdom with this center, and it's very worth it. And I think that, this example can translate to all of the centers, because we can, in where we're undefined, we can really feel scared of that definition or resentful of it. And you can digest it, you can cleanse it out of your system, and you can have a totally different life in relation to those frequencies.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I will say too, like one of the, the not self theme with the solar plexus is avoiding confrontation in the truth because of the emotional reaction, right? As emotional people, we get emotionally triggered, we get thrown on these waves. The open solar, the open solar plexus person feels it, and they feel not only the wave itself, but then they might get the backlash of the person exploding on them. So there can be like an avoidance of the truth and confrontation. And I will say for myself as a defined solar plexus person, yes, I may get triggered by the truth, but I love it because it gives me an opportunity to ride whatever that thing is on my waves and come into clarity and have more truth about myself or the situation or the relationship or this whatever's going on, whatever the thing is. And I am so grateful for it. And yes, it does throw me for a wave, but I just need a minute, and so I will often recommend for open emotional people if they need to like drop a bomb and then go take auric space away from the person that's feeling the emotions so that the person that's on the emotional wave can just ride their wave, right? Get to a place of clarity, and then they can come back together and talk if it's too difficult, because we definitely want your guys' truths, or at least I do.
I think the first step is actually to just be truthful with yourself, because I see plenty of emotional people who avoid truth. Like they don't want to deal with their own emotions, and they'll tend to project it on other people. Like, why are all these people crazy around me? I love to talk to emotional people who are like, oh, look at all these crazy people in my family. And I'm like, it's you. It's you not feeling your emotions and them feeling it and them not being deconditioned, but I've found for myself, it's most important for me to first be truthful with myself. Well, I'm feeling this. And then to have this awareness, oh, it might be an emotional person in my field I'm picking up on, and you can give them space, get out of their aura, and even do energetic cord cutting things if you're into that kind of thing. I found can really help. And then realize like, oh, just like we were saying with the root, it's like that it'll pass, or it's not. I mean, I've had the experience of just like sobbing and sobbing and sobbing with an emotional friend, which was really helping me to a point, but then just being like, this is never ending. And then I let my body get up, walk out of, I'm taking a shower. I was with a manifester. I'm taking a shower, walk out of the room, get in the shower, and just be like, doo-dee-doo. I mean, I don't have like the physical kind of hangover from it, from the crying, but just gone. The
solar plexus is the emotions is an intense energy. So absolutely. And wherever we have openness, we're made for stillness there. When we're away from the auras of other people, I mean, again, there's transits and and things that can activate things, but animals and plants, but we're made for stillness in those areas where we're open or undefined. So I would love to move into the spleen next.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I have a defined solar plexus. I'm an emotional authority. And Saeri is splenic authority. The spleen is her authority. And like I said, we'll talk more about authorities after, but it all plays a part in this. So the spleen is health and wellness and well-being. It's intuition. It's the theme of physical survival in the physical world. It's the most primitive center that we have. It's the one that animals have, that survival instincts and and whatnot. Sometimes I call it like spidey senses. I'm walking down the street and I get a bad feeling about a person or a thing, it's that spidey senses. It's like driving down the road and getting a feel about like a car that's, like something feels off. I look up get a feeling about it, and then it starts to move into my lane, but I catch it like a moment before. It's walking out the door and seeing my umbrella and getting this intuitive hit like, oh, I should bring my umbrella. And then I go up in my mind and go, but the sky is blue and there's no rain on the forecast. And I walk out the door, and halfway through the day, I'm like, oh, that's why I was supposed to bring my umbrella. All of that is the spleen, right? It's wanting to take care of us. And so when we have that defined, we have this, consistent way that our body shows up to give us information about these things. Saeri, I'm going to let you share more because this is your authority. It's a biggie for you, so I have to hear what you have to say about it.
Yeah, the spleen's a trip, and it's funny because I really have to pee, and I'm gonna like go and take the computer with me as we transition into the heart center with my stuff off. But like,
right.
And I was just, it's funny to me because it's like, oh, we're getting to my center, and my centers, I mean, spleen, heart, and G, as well. And I like really have to pee, but, yeah, the funny thing, so in human design, you'll hear it said that the spleen is survival fear in the now. And it's this like lightning now. It's said to be soft, like a faint kind of voice. And I have heard my spleen actually speak before, like full sentences. Whereas like with the sacral's like, it's like these sounds. It's not really necessarily words. Whereas I find this, my spleen can be words, but it can all be, it's this full range of different senses. One of them is like, I'll get chills when someone is speaking a high truth. And early on, I was trying to use that like a sacral response, like it's a yes or a no, but I found it's actually not really that personal. It's just informing me that you're with a safe person who's telling the truth to themselves and to you right now, like a high truth. But the biggest trip about it is, and especially with this teaching about it being survival fear in the now, a lot of times splenic people can like get in this kind of mental rut of like, well, I just have to have blinders on in this moment. I don't know what's going to happen. And so I have to wait for my spleen to tell me. But the spleen is actually, it's the intuition, and it's giving you information about the future that's informing you in the now, what to do with it now. And so like one of my biggest challenges has been like, I'll get these full on downloads about the future, you guys. It's crazy. Like 2 to 5 to 10 years and on out, like to where I used to be like always trying to like capitalize on trends that I saw coming. And in the moment, people would be like, you're crazy, high-waisted jeans are never coming back. And I was like, yes, they are. And they are now. And I actually right now have a design on a dress form in my laundry room that's been resting for like 5 years of these designs I made. But so the thing is that you'll get these flashes of the future. Mm-hmm. And your mind will be like, okay, I know what I need to do to blah, 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 get there. No. You stay in the moment. Your spleen is guiding you with that vision for like, what does that mean for right now? Like Nova said, like pick up the umbrella. I don't know why. It doesn't make sense to me. It's really wild that way. So I just feel to like, it's like, and I think that's how we can trust the spleen in the moment, is like, gosh, I don't know why I'm getting this sense, but I'm going to just trust it for now. I'm just going to like I had that experience with something recently. I don't remember what it was, but it was a thing to put in my car. And then it turned out to be the perfect thing that I needed. Right. And it was like, it made no sense when I was throwing it, or I could make sense of it, but I was like, yeah, but does it really matter? Like with the umbrella, but it ended up being just like, oh my God, I'm amazing. And I also think I call my spleen my secret secretary, because she'll like do things for me that in the future I'm like, oh, thank you, secret secretary. Like I totally forgot about that, but she already set it up. She already made the appointment, communicated with somebody. And then I just kind of forgot about it, and it was all set up perfectly. So yeah, driving has been a really fun experiment with that. Like I once found my like a neighborhood that I was I ended up looking at a house to live in with my boyfriend at the time. And I'd already gotten a bad vibe about the place. And then it was really wild because it's like I just literally followed my spleen. I'm like, I'm just gonna drive and see where it takes me. It took me to this random little neighborhood in Forestville. And then, like a month later, we were looking at a house there. And my mind really liked everything about it. But my spleen was like, hey, FYI, don't live here.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because I love how you talked about that for me, because I have a defined solar plexus. That's my ultimate authority. But my spleen gives me information in the moment that moves me. As long as there isn't an emotional charge to it, then my spleen guides me in the moment, right? So for me, with my spleen, I find myself trying to go up in my head and like solidify what my spleen has the ability, the experience of, right? So my spleen like says, oh, let's, I'm speaking as if sometimes my spleen has sentences, but sometimes my words are just not my spleen saying it. But it's like, oh, let's go swimming. I feel like I want to go swimming. So then my mind goes in and goes, yes, and we're going to swim 20 laps. And you know what I mean? Like, my body's like, oh, I want to actually swim a lap now. My mind wants to be like, yes, we're going to get all the way there and all the way back. Like, it just tries to make everything so solid. But the body, the spleen, the way it works is it's so fluid. It's just like in each moment, just, doing what feels good here and what feels good here and what feels good here, and just moving and just taking, I say feels good, but I mean, there's a feels good for me, but that's something different. The reason that feel good is important is something different, but it just moves me in this way to different things. But what I love about your story is that just because it's moving us to something doesn't always mean it's moving us to something that is, that we want to have, or is good or whatever. Like, it can lead us to things that, like you said, later on you go back and you're like, actually, I don't feel good about that. But you have that splenic, awareness around it. My grandson is a splenic projector, and he's a 6'2". We'll talk about profiles later, but I always thought that the spleen led people to things that were good for them, that were in the best interest of their health and well-being, until you have a child who needs to learn by making mistakes, and you realize that their spleen actually is going to lead them to things that are lessons and opportunities for growth, not always the things that are
so true.
That
it's
people
so
think,
true.
that the mind thinks are good, right?
I've got some crazy stories I'm not going to go into because of time, but I'll tell them in the course about like actually following the fear. But yeah, you'll hear a lot in human design that the spleen is it's like really more of a warning, and you don't get good feelings from it, which is not my experience at all, actually, but it is a legit part of it for sure. Like it's this kind of dread or this like weight in my body that's like moves me in a direction. And then it also sometimes has me walking in and out of doors. Like in and out. Like when I go to leave my house, I'm also a triple split, which probably plays into it, but I leave like 3 times, usually like minimum 3 times. I have to like go back in my house and leave and go back in my house and then go. And then I'm like, okay, now we're ready to go.
I love that. There's like
So it can feel really nutty to the mind. Like, why can't it just be like, like the 20 laps? This makes sense. This would be good. This is a good idea. And it's like, you don't really know what's going on right now. Just trust your body.
Yeah. Oh, there's so many things I want to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's move on.
All right, let's move on.
So the heart center is interchangeably called the ego and the will. It is also a motor center, and it generates the energy of willpower, which is that, where there's a will, there's a way, that making things happen. But one of the things that I've learned with this center, and I won't speak for Saeri, but she has that same energy, is that for me with my ego center, it's not about what I want to make happen. That's often the mind. It's about what's moving through me to happen. Like it's, that willpower energy moves things out of the way and is engaged in making something happen, but it's not from my mind and like my, I want to make it, so I'm going to make this happen. There's enough force. I don't have to force it. It just moves things for me and engages for me. So there's the willpower part of it, and then there's also the ego part of it. But before we talk about the ego part of it, I just want to see if Saeri wants to share anything about the willpower part.
Yeah, well, I just saw somebody said, wait, what about if the spleen is undefined? So like
Well, right.
I want to, because the heart is like a whole thing, but
right.
yeah, so you'll have an inconsistent relationship with survival fear and intuition. So it could be that like you're like there's danger, there's like imminent danger, and you're like just doughy-eyed, like completely oblivious of it. Or it could be feel really really extreme danger when there isn't danger necessarily. That just depending on like who's in your field, right? Because it's so specific. It's like situations that are really dangerous objectively are not for me. Like that's where I'm meant to be for various reasons in my chart, and my spleen knows that. So you'll see a lot of time, and then also like medicine wise, like Western medicine is really for defined spleens. Like we have these sturdy immune systems that can actually bypass themselves and overdo it. We're the people that they just died. They were healthy as a horse. Like, I don't understand. Whereas like undefined spleens are way more sensitive. And so really gentle medicines are better for in general. Now, like you have your own authority, so it may be that you have some allopathic guidance if you find yourself in a health crisis, because that's like what allopathic medicine is good for. Like the hospital and like really strong antibiotics and all that stuff. But gentle medicines tend to be best for undefined spleens, like essential oils and flower essences and energy medicine. And now that's good for everybody because that's the wisdom potential of the undefined spleen. And a lot of times you'll see like these great healers have undefined spleens. And now my spleen's going off saying that. It's just like true. Like really great healers because they have wisdom about that. But you'll definitely want to like watch whose aura you're in if you feel like shit. And you can also get hooked on that you can feel safe with a defined spleen when you're not. And this is where a lot of addictions and relationships and abusive relationships can have to do with someone has an undefined spleen and they feel safe with their abuser. So that was more than I thought I'd say, but I feel like thank you for saying that, because it's really important, I think,
it is. Yeah, absolutely. So the undefined spleen is 45% of the population, and the not self theme is sticking with things that are not good for them for too long. And it comes from that, that spleen juju. Oh, this person feels so good. This thing feels so good, whatever, sticking with things longer than they're good for you. But you have a sensitivity there that, a sensitive immune system, a sensitivity to your own health and wellness. And so people that are undefined, and so, there's this wisdom there around, being sensitive, noticing things really early. And, whereas for us with the defined spleens, like we don't know that we're sick until we're like dying, like Saeri said. And we also don't get sick very often, but when we do, we're, it's hard on us. And so with the undefined spleen, there's that wisdom to be able to feel into people's health and wellness around that.
I feel really fortunate that I think it has to do with being a non-sacral that I have been sick a lot, because it's really made me respect my spleen. And I found, like when I've had these big crisis moments, like just hitting rock bottom, the message I got was like, the most harmful thing I can do is go against my spleen. And I also want to say to undefined spleens that, I think a lot of undefined splenic people who are kind of feeling like they're lost in their conditioning, they are maintaining someone in their home who has a defined spleen, who's just like kind of sucking off of them. Like they're running that person's splenic energy through their system and like a filter, like cleaning it for them and returning it to them. And I think there's a great opportunity to, clean up those situations, and you can actually become a professional and help people be well for yourself, but not be doing it for people, but actually use that wisdom of your sensitivity, because you can pick up on these nuances in their system that they're just like so desensitized to. So I'm really grateful for undefined spleens, and it pains me to see when they're locked into these relationships where they're just maintaining one person at the peril of their own health.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And again, with the spleen, with the undefined spleen, with the not self theme of not knowing, like taking, carrying on with something longer than it's good for them. That's what pulls you out of your authority, right? The irrational fears or whatever, like you're not here to make decisions from that, right? You're here to feel into your authority and make decisions from there, and that will guide you. And empty out any energy that you're picking up from other people's spleens that might be keeping you stuck in those things that aren't correct for you, right?
I love it.
And the same thing with the solar plexus. I didn't show this also, but with the solar plexus, empty out other people's emotions, like, feeling other people's emotions or being afraid of other people's emotions, those can keep you out of your own authority, right? Those things can make your authority not work correctly. So empty the energy out and then come back into your body, into your definition, to your authority. So yeah. So the heart center, Saeri, do you want to share anything about the willpower energy of the heart center?
Yeah. So the center is about making promises. It's about deals. It's the tribal center. The tribal circuitry is about, which we're not going to go into circuitry today. I don't even know if we're going to get through the other stuff, but like, is about resources for the survival of the tribe, of the family. So this is also where the money is. The tribe has the money. And so that has to do with, making deals, making promises, negotiations. It also has to do with competition. You see that with money, right? But the thing to see about it is it's all for the betterment of the tribe and the family. And competition came up recently. Really beautiful projector brought it up in our Defined Egos only group called Big Healthy Ego. And the way I see competition, I have the most competitive channel in the body graph, is my 5125. And for me, it's not about being against anybody. It's actually about just being the best, me being the best in my relationships, being the best in my family and my tribe. And it actually goes out to the whole world and collective for me too. But there can be like, I started this group, Big Healthy Ego, for Defined Egos, because I was noticing that we have those of us who have a defined heart center, which I think it's like 30% of people, 35.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in the minority. We tend to have people competing with us everywhere we go. Like Rob gives the example of like you're reaching for a sandwich at the grocery store and somebody like reaches in and grabs it first, and I see it a lot on the road. And my view is that it's for the defined egos to really clean up our frequency. That's really been where my work has been. It's like let's acknowledge that, this is being amplified at us from us. So there's definitely, they say it's the last center to decondition in the body graph. It's a real holdout. If you're undefined, you don't have anything to prove. Like, I just love to give that gift to the undefined. Like, you have nothing to prove. Those of us with a defined ego, we actually do have something to prove, but it's not like it's just consistent for us. It's in our heart. We feel that, and when you get around us, you might feel that. It's similar to like that root pressure, like this pressure to prove yourself to us, to other people. And, you don't have to sign up. You don't have to sign up. You can participate, you can definitely can play, but like, you don't have to be on that track all the time. And also like the heart center is not consistent in itself when it's defined. It's like, for us, it's like, do we have the will? Do we have the will to do it? And there can be a way that we can access our ego energy to push through things when it's not correct for us. And that's the distortion that I think we see coming through the undefined. So yeah, I'm very passionate about this center. It's really been for me recognizing like I have a tremendous heart. Like this heart is fierce. It is big. It loves so hard. It's very interested in boundaries and making clear agreements, like that's how Nova and I have navigated to doing this, is like we make agreements about everything. Everything. And I'm really sensitive to that with people who are undefined, but we still can make agreements that work between us. In fact, I think it's better to, even to say like, if you are feeling like you're proving yourself, like you could be honest with me about it and we can talk about it. And if that's like appropriate for you, like in my closer relationships. So yeah, I could go on and on about that. And I want to acknowledge Nova. I don't know that we will get through the other stuff and that maybe we'll do other classes for those things, but we are on the last center here. So
yeah, I feel like it'll all flow. Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks.
cool.
Yeah, so when I started my deconditioning journey, I started with centers, just really understanding the energy of each one and how it worked for me. And so I really do like spending a lot of time on these. I'm really grateful that we are really digging into this part of it, because it took years for me to really understand the energy of each of these centers. And so it feels like a gift to be able to give people like real access to an understanding of these, early on, so they can really feel into that for their own experiment. I will say with the heart center, the ego, one of the things for myself being defined there is being careful about the commitments that I make, because my body then will want to follow through with them. And so I've been really conscientious about the agreements that I make and commitments. And that book, The Four Agreements, can be really helpful in understanding how to like break past agreements that we've made that are no longer serving us. Because with that heart center there, we really want to follow through on the commitments that we've made and the agreements we've made. So being really cognizant of that. And then again, with the undefined heart or ego, knowing that you're not here to make promises and commitments in that way. You're here to allow your authority to help you make decisions that are correct for it and will be correct for your body, but not coming from a place of trying to prove. When it comes to deconditioning, the heart is the top of the hierarchy there. If somebody has that undefined, most things that are off in their system is going to come back to trying to prove something. I just did a session with a self-projecting projector recently, and we went through all the centers, and that was the undefined center, and everything was on, but he was really off with his variables, which are the arrows, and it turns out that it all came from the heart center. It was trying to prove this thing, like so much was correct, and then this one thing was huge and it was like really incorrect, and it all came back to that trying to prove. It's a big one.
Yeah, when I'm with people who have defined egos, in my coaching practice, I'm like, because there's a way that we'll be like, oh, I don't have to prove that. And it's like,
Right.
Actually feel me heart to heart. You have something, you know, and then the people who have it undefined, it's just like that. I just, maybe I've said
Yeah.
this already. I just love to set them free with that. You don't have anything to prove. And that's such a gift to everybody else for you to come into that wisdom about these frequencies.
Absolutely. And then I'd love to move into the G center. So
Mhm.
the G center is life direction, love direction, identity. It's the compass, that guides us, right? And so Saeri has it defined, I have it undefined. So we get to share our unique experiences with it. But with the G center, because it is this compass that guides us, right? It's where what's called the magnetic monopole lives, which is, what is and always will be, and the now, like connected, right? And there's this magnetic, polarity between them that holds us in each moment, right? So when you're defined, you have this fixed, direction that you're on. When you're undefined, like myself, we're open. We're, as far as identity goes, like we're chameleons. We fit in with different people. Not all of our people fit in with each other, because we can fit in with anybody. But we fit in with all these different people. I always would say, I joke and say that I could hang out with a bunch of hippies for breakfast and be a total hippie, hang out with a bunch of goths for dinner and be a total goth. Like, I just really maneuver and flow as far as identity goes. Um, and then life direction, like, and love direction. But with life direction, it's like, for me, I feel like I'm a ship with my sails open, right? And like the wind catches me and it takes me somewhere, right? And then the wind catches me, takes me somewhere else. And I'm not here to control the direction that I'm on, or try to make my life direction go in some way, because I'm undefined there. I just flow and move as, as I'm moved. And oftentimes another analogy I'll use is like skating. Like, I'll ride other people's G's, their directions, right? And so like skate and kind of push off on different G's. When we have the undefined G, we're here to sample life. We're here to sample these different life paths and identities and all these different things and get wise about this, right? And then love direction. Learned, I have learned and continue to learn to release my attachment to my relationships, the direction that they go, and really allow them to, take the course that they're here to take without my, trying to control, like the puppeteer, the direction of things, with like moving certain things in the way or trying to force it in any direction. With the open G, environment is everything. The people that we're around and the physical environment that we're in, if we get a bad feeling about it, it's important that we don't stay there. Because with the G being undefined like that, it's like we're taking in poison if we're in the wrong place, and nothing in our life is going to work. Nothing is going to work if we're in the wrong place in the wrong environment. Ross said, if you have kids with an undefined G and you're going to move, like, let them go get a feel for the place first before you commit to moving there. Because if you bring your kids to a place that doesn't feel good to them, and then they are stuck staying there, that they could end up, nothing in their life will work for them. And I had that experience with my oldest daughter. I moved her into a place and nothing worked for her, including me. Like, our relationship no longer worked. I was no longer the correct mom for her because she was in such an incorrect place. So that the undefined G is it's a big one.
Ooh. Wow. I feel so, I'm just noticing I'm so activated here. And sometimes that can be like, people use that as a word of being triggered, but I'm just noticing the neutrality I have around being activated. Yeah, this has been oh my gosh, such a beautiful experiment with Nova.
Mm.
I feel like it's something that I tend to and check in with my undefined G people, and there's a lot of them. My daughter is undefined G. And then the way that we've navigated is, actually really checking in with Nova's authority with the direction. And it's been really beautiful because I have this really strong direction. Like, I'm on a mission, y'all. I'm on a mission. Like, from God. And this center is, to me, it is like the all everythingness of God, of life, of existence. And it's a portal to God. That's the messaging I get about it, and the way I've experienced it. Because, and I'm thinking about when I did that quantum timeline repair offering, that's inside the continuum, and we want to do more things with it. But that was like, Nova was there, and it was like, I just like went through the portal with and I navigated in all of that through these like timelines, and like guiding people to connect with them, a past version of themselves, and like appear to them as like an angel. And I'd already had experience with that. I'd already been shown that, but there's something about just like the spaciousness of Nova, and that she was with me, that I felt right to her. Her authority was why she was with me and in that direction. And so it's like, for her, the direction just keeps being revealed, and we keep checking in. How does this feel? Do you have the clarity for this next step? Even if it's just to be on the call, like, we had really no idea what was going to come through in that offering, right? Like, I mean, I did have a mental construct, which was correct, but what actually happened was just like, whoa, dude. So, and I've experienced that with other clients of mine who have undefined G's. Like, I'm guiding a process, and like, just, I don't know, it's magical, it's celestial. And it's also like the open G itself is really neutral about, like, because it's just everything.
Yeah.
It's a very kind of impersonal God, whereas like I feel that the G is a very personal way about God, creator, source, or whatever you want to call it, the void. And it is the void, right? Because this is what we see from the 51 is the leap into the void, to the 25 is the void.
I feel, I mean, I have learned so much about the G energy, and grown so much wisdom around my experience with my own G, but just, wisdom around the G through experiencing you, because you have such clear energy in your G, such clear energy in your, direction, and the way that you guide and all of that has been really a powerful experience for me to experience, to really understand the wisdom around my undefined G, and surrendering to direction. Yeah, it's been really incredible.
It's something I've really come to respect, that has yielded, well, this process we're going to be sharing later this year called Clarity Journey. I take my clients through this 3-month process before we take a direction, because like, for them to witness what their direction is, and for it to occur to them, so that I'm not like taking them off on my direction or what I think is best, which I am right a lot of the time about people, just like with the kind of projector I am. But it really doesn't matter if they can't feel that for themselves. They feel like they're getting on this train track, and they're really locked in. And, even my colleague, Amy Harris, who has an undefined G, she helped me develop one of the ceremonies in that, that we created a video for it. And I was just like, I want you to do this, present this, help me train people in it and share it more broadly, because I can only do it one-on-one with so many people. And she's a really clear emotional generator. And her thing was like, is this my thing? Is this my thing, or is this Saeri's thing? Like, and she was really aware of that. It actually wasn't her direction. It was enough of her direction to create it with me and do the investigation. But now she went through it, and it yielded her actual direction, which she's very engaged in right now, doing amazing work. So.
Yeah. And I will say too, with the undefined G, I mean, that first of all, just to complete, I'm very much completionist, 45% of the population are undefined in the G. Okay, now I'm putting those notes away. with the undefined G, I think I just lost it. The not self theme of the undefined G is looking for love, looking for life direction, trying to control the direction, all of that stuff. And oftentimes what will happen is, because we have that undefined G, if we're not synced up with somebody or life isn't taking us in some direction, we have these periods where we'll feel really lost, and we have to get really comfortable with that void space of not knowing where we're going. It's like a compass, and it's just spinning and spinning, and we don't know which way is north, and we just have to wait for it to go bing. It just takes time. The undefined G is a really, it can be a really intense experience.
Yeah.
So I am looking at the time. We have about 15 minutes left.
Yeah, I feel to just like let you navigate the rest of it.
Yeah.
And any other depth we can offer,
Perfect.
See what we want to do. We have 2 other calls this week that are available and also going to be recorded. So, we can answer any questions in there and connect with you and, offer more teaching if that's what comes up.
Perfect. I love that. All right. I am going to kind of skim through these. The inner authority ones are going to be easy because we really went into depth when we were talking about the center. So emotional authority, if you have emotional authority, you have emotional waves. There's no truth in the now. Waiting for clarity instead of, if you get the urge to make a decision, sleep on it, see how it feels the next day, because we'll move on where we're at on our wave. Yeah, that's the biggest thing I can say with emotional authority. What I found is if I make decisions when I'm on a high wave and I'm so excited and everything's if I make a decision or a commitment or, something, I end up regretting it. I end up wishing I hadn't committed to that thing because, I don't have the energy to match that now. My energy has gone down and it feels different. And if I make a decision when I'm on a low wave, I definitely end up regretting those later. Because it's not time, yet. If I don't have clarity, it's just not time yet. And so when I'm on a wave, I just know that my mind is going to try to say all kinds of things, and all kinds of, stuff is going to come up that, may get me trying to get hooked on, on making a decision or, feeling some kind of way about something. And I just know in each moment that I'm on a wave, like there's no truth right now. Like this isn't the truth. Like I'm just riding this wave. I'm just watching the mind, tell these stories about this person or that experience. And I'm just watching it like a movie without allowing myself to get hooked on it. Okay, so that's emotional authority. Sacral authority is that mechanism of the sacral to be in response, right? So it's the gut of being like a yes, or like or a yes to something, or a no. And you can feel your body get flooded with energy when you're a yes. You can feel that or if you're not a yes to something. If you don't have clarity, then it's to be treated like a no until it's a yes. And again, this is decisions that you're making for yourself. This is your own authority. Inner authority is, knowing that nobody outside of you knows what's best for you or knows better for you than you know for yourself. You have the wisdom inside of you. And it's not about making decisions from the mind. It's about making those decisions from the body. So we talked about emotional authority, we talked about sacral authority, splenic authority, we talked about that. Splenic, intuition in the now. Ego authority, what your heart is into, what you're committed to, what you feel like what you feel like your heart is into, what you feel very devoted to and committed to. That's what your decision is. That's how you make your decision, how you guide your direction. And then G, self-projected authority is, so all 3 of these do well with soundboarding. They do well with talking. So ego authority, if you don't have clarity, it can be helpful to talk it out with a friend until you can really feel, where your heart is, right? And you can feel yourself get really passionate. With G, the way that you access your truth is by speaking and processing it out. Again, it's called soundboarding, talking with somebody, that doesn't try to give you advice, and somebody that feels good to be able to openly share with until you find what sounds like you, like you're talking until it sounds like you and you can feel that, you know, that this is the truth. You can feel the truth of it. Mental authority, sometimes still called environmental authority, but it's mental authority. This is projectors. Only projectors would have mental authority or self-projected authority. But mental authority, this is mental projectors. They also soundboard, and so they need to speak and say things. And what they're looking for is a vibrational clarity of the truth, and it is actually a mental clarity, because every mental projector is going to have a defined ajna, but it's like almost like there's a vibration to it where it's like almost I was thinking of like a tuning fork, where it's like there's like a clearing out as it's talking. There's a clearing out of like the energy that's like not a part of it, and it gets really clear about what is, and it has like a mental clarity, and then it's like, yes, this is it. And then no authority or lunar authority. This is going to be reflectors. And for making decisions, the way they know their truth is by waiting out a full moon cycle, because the moon will activate all of the 64 gates, and so it will ping their entire system and activate them. And then by the end of that lunar cycle, they'll be able to feel what stayed the same as they've been activated in all these different ways, what stayed the same over that time, and they know that's the decision to make. And then there's the aura types. I feel like the aura types is something I want to just touch on a little bit, but this is definitely something that we can talk more in depth on in the calls later this week. So actually, I feel like I just want to talk about aura types on the next call. In fact, actually, because I don't think I can just touch on any of them. Lines and profiles. This one will be easy for me. So there's 6 lines in the I Ching. The first line is the investigator, the researcher. I'm just going to touch on these. We can get in more depth in the later calls. But the first line, if you look at your profile, it'll be a number and then a slash and then a number. So if you have a 1 in your profile, this is the investigator, the researcher. I'm a 1-3. So I have this first line, like really wanting to understand the foundations of things, always digging deeper, and we thrive in security. Right? Just always wanting to dig deeper and really get a sense of the foundation. We're always digging under that foundation for what's actually the foundation under it. But wait, it's a never ending digging deeper. The 2 is the hermit or the natural, likes to keep to themselves, like the hermit, right? They, in the house, doesn't want to be bothered or whatever, like doing their own thing, tinkering around. They're called the natural because they like tinker with stuff. They're really just naturally good at things. That's actually a projection we put onto them. We see them doing these things and we're like, wow, you're so good at this. And they can be, but they don't always know how they know how to do things. They just do. But they need to be called out. The second line needs to be called out. So, a person or a friend or whatever, or a job opportunity or whatever it is, says, hey, do you want to do this thing? And then they'll feel if that call is correct for them, and it pulls them out of that hermit space, right? And they go do the thing and then they go back and hermit again. And yeah, with the 2, there's that calling out, that hermiting calling out, the natural. Third line is the experimenter or martyr. So the third line is, as an experimenter, we're here to refine over time through trial and measure. So we try everything that doesn't work, make lots of mistakes, break a bunch of stuff until we find what works. One of the things with the third line is bonds made and broken. We need to take breaks from things. When we can break off completely from things, and our body, there's like an alchemical experience where the third line, I said then the body, I have a third line body. But yeah, I guess it is still the body. Anyway, but the third line just needs to take breaks from things. It makes sense of it, like gets clear, whatever, empties out the stuff that doesn't matter, and then re-enters the bond. So it's bonds made and broken, made and broken, made and broken, made and broken. I mean, it can be infinite, right? There's micro bonds, there's macro bonds. Micro bonds are like going to sleep in your own bed at night. Macro bonds could be taking, a week vacation away from somebody or whatever. So there's these different ways that the bondsman and broken plays a part in that process of refining, because with the refining over time, we get better at things over time. Things start to work over time with that third line. Okay, fourth line is the opportunist. The opportunist is like the networker, like they know all the right people who know the right people to like make things happen. And that's how they experience the opportunities in their life, is through the people that they know. They're not going to get opportunities in their life that are correct for them through strangers. So setting up, putting up something on LinkedIn or, or a, dating app, online dating app or whatever, that doesn't work for fourth lines. All of their opportunities are going to come through the people that they know and the people that they know. Fifth line profile is a really big one, and I'm going to try to keep it. The 5 and 6 are both pretty big, but the fifth line profile, just know that it's the savior or the heretic, right? So when we see people with a fifth line profile, we see them as what we need them to be for us, to save us. We see them as whatever it is that we're needing them to be. And when they don't live up to that expectation that we have, we want to burn them at the stake as the heretic, right? So with the fifth line people have this like sparkly mirage about them. We're like, oh my gosh, you're so enchanting, and I'm so drawn to you and so attracted to you. And fifth line people, they love to help people. They love being the savior when it's correct. When there's something that is for them to save, like they love being in that role, but it has to be correct for them. And part of it is feeling into those projections that people are putting onto them, and knowing, like feeling into if that is correct, if that's something that they feel like they are here to be, that person that person sees them as, and feeling into that. And the heretic experience is a whole nother experience. There's fifth line people, if they're struggling with something, people often can't see through a projection field to see the things that they're struggling with. Fifth line people have, they go into the doctor and they're like, I'm having this health issue, and the doctor's like, you look great, you look fine, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. So fifth line people, it's important to have people that they can really be real with, that they can really let in behind that projection field into what's happening on the other side, that isn't going to burn them at the stake. All 3 of my kids are fifth line profiles, and I've had to learn, I've had to really catch myself that if there's a moment where I'm wanting, I'm like, what, that's not who you are, or like I want to burn them at the stake because they're not doing something, that's because of my expectations, the projection, that I'm putting onto them. And then it becomes an opportunity for me to find out, who they are behind that projection field, to get to know them more. And then the 6th line is the role model. So the role model has 3 phases. The first 30 years is the third line experience of, making a mess out in the world, making a mess, breaking things, trying to find what works through trying all the things that don't work. And then from around 30 to about 50, they go through the second phase, which is where they come inward. They detach from the world. They do what we call climb up on the roof, go up on the roof, kind of get away from the world, observe the world, do their inner work, process, make sense. There's often a lot of learning that happens, taking classes, whatnot in that second phase. And then around 50, when they go through their Chiron return and heal their deepest wounding, is when they climb down off the roof and emerge as the role model for the world. So sixth line people, they're born knowing that they have something to give the world. They know that they're here to help others, that they're here to, teach people, or be, a teacher in some way or something. And they spend their entire life refining it, perfecting it over time. Now there's the perfectionist in the 6th line, but it's not about perfecting it in the moment. It's about, the long game of perfection, perfecting over time, refining, gathering things, the first 30 years, making a big mess, right? The next 20 years, like really doing that deep inner work, gathering things in and refining that process. So at 50, when you emerge as the role model, that process has refined and you just emerge, you just are the role model, you just have the things. And people can see it, people can feel it, people can be drawn to it, people are going to want it. So if you're under 50 and you have these things that you're wanting to do with people, just know that it can take time. And not to say that you're not here to maybe experiment with some of it, offer things and whatnot, as is correct according to your authority, but just know that if it doesn't end up being perfect, right, just know that's because it's a part of the process. It doesn't have to be the end result. And check in with the time. All right, we've about 4 minutes before the time, the end of the call, but I'm willing to stay here longer. Just want to make sure everybody knows that.
You're willing to stay here longer?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I don't know if you saw my direct messages, but I feel like I could go through the types real quick. And then we could stay after for some questions. Oh, but I do like these slides you have too.
Yeah, I feel like
really
if people
go over
yeah. Yeah, I feel like if people have like the 4 minutes, because I don't know what people were like, okay, I'm gonna be done at this time. I'd love to finish this part up.
Okay.
Because I feel like this is an important piece to like a completion, and then take a moment for the next slide, because I feel like the next slide is really important also.
Okay.
And then it's the Q&A after that, so we can just do whatever at that time, and we can stay longer. Yeah.
Okay. Well, cool. I'd like to go over the types before we go into the Q&A, I think, just because I think it's so important, the types.
Okay. So now what do we do with all this information, right? This is a lot of information. First of all, it's recorded. You didn't have to memorize everything. I think of when I do sessions and calls like this and whatever, I think of it as like a curriculum. You've just been given like years of curriculum, right, to experiment with. So welcome to your deconditioning journey, or, here's more fodder for your deconditioning journey if you're already on it. But the point of all of this, the goal, what to do with all this information, is experiment with it. Experiment with being you and letting the rest go. Experiment with your strategy and authority. And I guess you can't do strategy if we don't talk about the types. I guess we'll talk about the types after this. But experimenting with those, the strategy and authority are the two biggest things. We're all said, if you live out your strategy and authority, it will guide you to everything. You don't even need to learn anything else about human design or anything else, because your strategy and your authority will take you to everything that you need. It's very fundamental in this process. And then growing an awareness of the not self themes and the open centers in your life, right? Those are the places where we can experience the most suffering, and we can see these patterns where things don't work out. So experimenting with that, opening up when we feel that, in those open centers, opening up, letting that energy go, and coming back into our definition, back into our authority, and acting from there. And then also checking out the charts of your loved ones, getting a sense of who they are and what's going on with them. And also, if you're a projector, it can be really helpful to see the charts of people outside of you, because that's how you're going to learn how this stuff works, more than being able to look at yourself. You're going to learn it through seeing how it works for other people. A couple tips, or a few tips: trust your process. It's not always going to be pretty. It's not always going to look like it's, what the mind thinks that, the direction is supposed to go. Just trust your process. It's yours. You can't do it wrong. And it can be helpful to find support on the journey. So the last thing that I wanted to make sure to get in is the deeper dive that we want to do. So we have the 2 calls this week, the open labs, where we can do this. And you guys got a sense of how these deeper dives work with the open, we're talking about centers, how Saeri and I, interact in this way, and so we have these conversations and we can dig in. But the way that this course is set up is for other people to be able to ask questions, and it becomes this really deep exchange of this information. So if you want to dig deeper into this, like I said, we have the 2 open labs this week. So we have the Wednesday and the Friday labs to practice this, to ask questions, to dig in deeper, to understand this more, if there's things that you didn't quite understand. And then there is this deeper foundational intensive that we're doing for the month of July. It's a 4-week interactive class. It's $222, which is like the price of a reading, but you get a whole 4 weeks with us for the price. And it's a differentiated course model. This is what I'm so excited about with this, is that this isn't your typical course, because Oftentimes people set up courses in a way that aren't made for people being unique. And this course is made for people to honor themselves and being unique. It is tailored to the participants' interests and their designs. So that is what I am like so excited about. You can learn more about the course at the Q&As, the open labs this week, or if you want to reach out to us, we can set up phone calls. I can't actually see the bottom because my Zoom is glitching and it's covering the bottom sentence, so I can't see all of it. But if you have questions, please feel free to reach out. We're really excited about this because we love doing this work.
You said it all, by the way.
Okay, good. Awesome.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then the next one was the Q&A. But
okay, cool. Well, I would love to jump in here, and I want to say some things about that slide, and then if you would click back to the types real quick. So what's so cool about this is like you get to see us in real time navigating this experience, and that's really what we're doing in the course as well. That, I mean, we're just both so turned on about this. I mean, look at Nova's third line, and now we're discovering how this is actually happening, and the order is different than we thought. And I'm already seeing the brilliance of the way that we're doing it, and that we're probably going to do this again and refine it even more because we'll find out what works. And a lot has been working. But I feel so passionate about doing courses this way. It is what I've discovered in my own group work that I did. I took a big break since 2019, but I just kept seeing that it's like what came through had to do specifically with the people who were there. And so it's like who's there really matters. Like you make it what it is. And we are in the space and the perspective and the allowance of like recognizing that the people who come in are co-creating it with us. It's not just like, here's some information and, and then blah, blah, blah. Now we'll coach you on it. It's not hierarchical like that. Like, yes, we're leading it, but this is really from a desire to support people to become themselves. And then also like, we want you in our community as yourself, where you can also collaborate with us and with other people and share your work. So, we're both defined egos and, we want to help everybody rise to be the best here. So, thank you for being here and thank you for watching. I mean, even though we're not doing hardly any interaction, like your auras are doing it, even those of you through the recording quantum style, but I won't heretic out on that right now. So I'd love it if you'd click back to the type. Okay, this is huge, you guys. This is your aura type. And this is what makes human design different from anything else. Like a lot of the other systems, and they're beautiful, wonderful systems, are about our personalities. And with the human design having both the personality and the design side, those two numbers in the beginning on each side of the body graph that Nova was showing you, this is our body, like our form. And this is about form consciousness, really. So it's so helpful. And, I invited a lot of people from my parenting groups to come to this because this is huge with kids. Like anytime I hear somebody saying like, oh, this child is impossible and I don't know what to do with them, I'm like, show me their chart. Let me see your chart. Let me see the two, because I know I will see something really powerful that can guide them in toward their signatures, which is what they're here for. So 70% of the planet are generators, either generators or manifesting generators. The difference between the vibes for me is generators have this kind of step-by-step thing They do, it kind of feels like a march or like a plodding do, do, do. They have a real kind of, I don't know, it's like a grounded energy to me in the way they do, because they're doers, they're builders. And manifesting generators have like, I call them like squirrels, they're designed to move quickly and skip steps. This aura is enveloping and it's attractive. Like, it has this like pull to it, like the earth, right? So it's like pulling life to it because it's got life itself, like attracts like, touches the sacral, and the sacral responds or not. So you've got these three, or nothing, which is the strategy. Here's a strategy for generator types: wait to respond, not here to initiate. And I find that generators get into trouble the most when they're in that wait zone, at least with what they think they want a response on, because they could be responding to all kinds of other things, but they're like, I want a response on this, and their mind pops in with, I've got an idea. And then they're initiating not from response. And that's where frustration, which is the not self theme, will come up. So this is a guidepost. You have frustration, you have satisfaction, which is what you're here for in your signature. Manifestors. So generators and manifestors are both energy types. Manifestors have dense auras. And so they have like this kind of gravity to them. They're here for impact, to initiate, the only type here to initiate. And I see impact as like, we think of impact as like going towards something, but it's also when they go away, they leave a hole and we can get sucked in. So it's like with Nova, I love to kind of ride her coattails, because it's like she's pushing forward and then I just kind of like cruise in behind her, and there's room for me. Their strategy is to inform, because they have dense auras, there's not a lot of information going in and out, which is appropriate because they're not really meant to be influenced. Their manifesting energy is just like, it's kind of doing its own thing, not necessarily what they think they want to initiate. But the informing is helpful for peace, which is what they're here for. For peace is their signature, to prepare the field for their impact. And a lot of times the impact can be just the informing itself. And it can be something as simple as like, I want to say something to you. And you'll notice, like, if you watch this again or just keep watching Nova and I interacting, I do my best to say statements to Nova. I avoid asking her questions if I possibly can. They're not here to respond. They're not generators. And a lot of times that'll kick up the anger, which is their not self theme. That's fine. I can't wait to get into the not self themes and the gifts of them. I'm not going to do it now, but just to say, it's not bad. It's not bad to be in your not self theme. It's part of your guidance that makes sure that you're always on path, which is like what Nova said, you can't mess this up. You can't. So anger and peace are the not self and signature for manifestors. Projectors, I'm a projector. Projectors are non-energy types. Now, you'll also hear there are energy projectors. These are projectors with motors. I have 2 motors, which are my heart and my root. However, I don't have consistent access to that life force energy frequency. I don't have a battery that runs out and then recharges every night, which is, the generator trip. It's like work for satisfaction, hopefully, ideally, get tired, go to bed, get more energy, wake up, new day. That's not, and manifestors aren't that way either. However, like working with Nova, I've seen it's like we're looking at our schedules and, like coming up this, and the things that Nova signs herself up for, I am like, girl, that is not going to work for me. And I want it to, but I've just had to realize like where I might project onto her that she is as inconsistent with energy as I am. Like I see her boom, 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 line things up, and then she rests and she's out for a while. And I'm like, that'll take me out for a year, which is why I stopped being a doula and a birth worker. I was like, 1 24-hour birth I needed a 2-year break, people. It was crazy. So anyway, projectors have a penetrating aura. We slice into the aura of especially generators because they have that permeable aura, and it's right at their G, and we amplify that life force. We're here to guide work, to guide work for satisfaction, and our signature is success. So it's like when the generators in my world are satisfied, I'm successful. You know, and the manifestors in my world are peaceful, I'm successful. We're very much here for the other projectors. We have a really hard time seeing it to ourselves because we don't point this way. Generators point this way, we point this way. And so we know ourselves through the other and through guidance. Our strategy is to wait to be recognized and invited. Because think about this, like I've said for years before I found human design, I have way too much information about people. I'm like up in everybody's aura everywhere I go my whole life. And so I thought that, well, then I need to tell people about this, and I know what's best for them, and I can guide them, and I can give them advice. And that never went well, and always ended up me feeling bitter, which is the not self theme. And it's, well, the only way we know if the information we have is correct for the other person is if they can see that we can see them and they invite us to. So it can be really hard, really, really hard for us to hold our tongue and hold all this wisdom that we have. It can be tempting to try to capitalize on it for our own survival, you know, to sell it to people. And, you know, hey, that is what I do in my job, and I am successful at it. But previously I was doing it for all kinds of codependent reasons. I was giving to get, and it feels like a violation to the other when you offer up unsolicited advice and insight. Now, I also like to I call it sprinkling fairy dust of recognition, like, you look great in purple, and oh, I'm so glad you're here. And you know that you can use recognition in that way. You just want to like leave space and get good at waiting, and you know, doing the things that feel successful to you while you're waiting for the bigger invitations. And big stuff, by the way, is like it can be anything that feels big, but you know, work, love, where you live, those are definitely big things to engage your strategy and authority around. Okay, reflectors are 1% of the population. Reflectors have no definition in their chart. And and I meant to say, manifestors have a motor connected to the throat is what makes a manifestor, unless there is a sacral center, which would make them a manifesting generator. I know we have one reflector here today, Jennifer Beth, and she's somebody that I work with, and I've worked with Nizarg B. Nikiel, who is, she's an original student of Ra and a just beautiful crone elder in our human design community, a human design teacher. And I got to work with her enrolling one of her courses right after I had my baby, and set up her website. And so I really got to investigate into reflectors. And reflectors are, you know, it seems like because they have all these open centers, they would be the most sensitive. And I actually would say generators, I think, are the most sensitive type. But reflectors are like, it's like a disco ball, right? They're not reflecting like a mirror, like a flat mirror. They're reflecting like aspects. And so it's not all at the same time. Their bodies like select, and they really distill frequency. They are kind of like the canaries in our community, in our communities. And you know, as we move forward with the sequence of offerings that we're doing, that are, you know, is going to include some in-person stuff and leading to in-person stuff, I want a reflector in the room with whatever I'm doing. I want it online too. But it's like, I don't even care what they're doing. Like if they're in the corner knitting or taking the nap, or, you know, or they're participating in what we're doing, it really doesn't matter to me. There's a quality that they bring that really can purify the frequency in the room, especially in, you know, in these spaces where we are intending to exalt the individual. who we are, because we can't help but just be in the yummiest frequencies, and we'll see that in our reflectors. And if you have a reflector in your life who's struggling, please look within yourself and look in the systems and the environments, and just start cleaning up your definition, because they're and you'll be with one too, and sometimes they'll just mirror you, so it's like they start talking like you, and so they can really take on the characteristics of their environments, which is like why it's just such a blessing to have reflectors who are engaging with their awareness in our lives. And Jennifer says, I want to be a part of everything you do, and I'm like, oh, yes, like that's such a it's a good omen. They're good omens. And so their signature is wonderment, awe. And their not self theme is disappointment. So, we all experience these emotions, right? And these feelings. I don't know if emotions are quite the right word, but these states. And so the one that's yours is like, those are your main guideposts, but you can also use this understanding for your relationships. And, you're experiencing disappointment. It's like, oh, that's something that reflectors are very wise about and to see about, and that can give you feedback about, your environment, because they're very environmental. So that wasn't as quick as I'd hoped, but
That was delicious.
I think I did it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was fantastic. I'm really grateful that we did get to go over that, because I wanted people to have, the three, the centers and authority, the aura type and strategy, and the profile, the lines on the profile. I really wanted them to have that at the end of this call. So I'm really grateful that you felt called to do that.
Yeah, so I think we could go another 10 minutes for.
Yeah, so that's what I was feeling into for the Q&A part. I mostly had put the Q&A part on here because I didn't know how long the thing was going to go, and I wanted to make sure to give people space and, really fill up that time if we needed it. I'm going to go ahead and actually shut this screen share off, because that's the end of that presentation. But yeah, I want to also acknowledge that we do have these 2 days this week that are, dedicated to also answering questions. So if we don't get to everybody's question, or if somebody feels like they want to wait and feel into it or anything like that, like that's what those 2 days are for. But if there's something that feels, important to ask, I would say feel free to raise your hand in the app. Like you could maybe I don't know about physically raising your hand, because I don't know how many people are on here, so I can't see everybody. But
put it in the chat. I still
there you go.
Raise my.
Yeah, that's even better. Yeah, popping it in the chat if you have a question.
Or wave if you're on video.
That works. And then the other thing I was going to say is, if you we'll wait for that. We'll wait and see if anybody has any questions, and if not, I had another idea. I'm not seeing anything come through.
I have ideas too. Our 6447s are like,
yeah,
always an idea on deck.
Yeah, we track stuff,
and then something
comes up. Oh yes, Stephanie.
Yay.
So do you want me to just ask it or type it in the chat?
You're welcome to ask if you want to.
Okay. Yeah, it's something that, and you can tell me if it's best to wait until the next time. So I'm a manifester. I have 3 channels. All of my channels are projected channels. So my question is, I've had multiple people tell me that I don't feel like a manifester, that they think I'm a projector, which has been interesting. So I'm just curious. I don't know if that would be best to wait for the other class, but I'm just curious about how the type of channel, does that affect your type and how you show up? I just I've never read anything about that, so that I'm curious about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to dig in deeper in that in another call, but I do want to say a little bit to that. As a manifester with 4 projected channels and 1 manifester channel, right? And I've been on panel with, for manifestors with projected channels. I have some experience with this specifically, and privy to other people's, other manifestors' experience with this. So one thing I will say is that as manifestors, that's our aura. Okay, our aura is the manifestor aura. That doesn't change. The aura gives out energy, and it gives out the energy of who we are, what is going on in here, right? So when I first read that manifestors had a dense, repelling aura, I was like, what? I don't feel dense and repelling. And people always tell me I'm so warm and gooey, right? So there's different parts to that. One is that I can definitely be dense and repelling. I can definitely be dense and repelling. And also that some of my not being as dense and repelling as a manifestor can be was conditioning and trying to be a generator. The other three types, the manifestors, projectors, and reflectors, we're all conditioned to be generators, and then everybody's conditioned to be manifestors, and it's a conditioning mess, right? But like for myself, I spent my entire life feeling like I was trying to be warm and enveloping. That is not who I am, and it can be very confusing and be really weird, right? But I also have, with my undefined G, I have gate 25, which is the gate of unconditional love. And that comes through my aura. So there's these ways, these pieces in my design that make my aura what it is, right? And how I operate as a manifestor to be very unique based on my design. But our aura is that of a manifestor. We do make an impact. We do have, these ways that we're dense and repelling for things that are not correct for us, right? So we repel the things that are not correct for us, I should say. So if you're experiencing a lot of people that are feeling like you're warm, warmer and more open, it may be that they're not experiencing that repulsion because they are correct for you. I don't know. There's so many pieces to it. That I would love to dive into at some point, but yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. There's a lot of pieces to that one.
I have some things to drop in. I love that question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I've seen this phenomenon since I began collecting charts, and I mean, I'm a projector investigator, so it was great. I call it my hoard, my chart hoard. I have charts I don't even know who they belong to at this point. Who is that? Should have made some notes. But what I noticed is that it is really common. And I still see this happening where manifestors will get a projector chart. Like there will be some mistake, which I now view as holy. And then the manifestor will be like, yay, I'm a projector. I'm in the projector communities. And then they find out that they're a manifestor and they are like, fuck, I don't want to be a manifestor. And so my joke is if you think, if you're happy to hear that you're a projector, you're probably not, because we typically, coming from a conditioned place, are like, this is the worst thing. This is getting sentenced to jail forever, and manifestors that get projector charts are like, yes, I'm a projector. And I see bitterness come through in manifestor anger. So yeah, I want to acknowledge that it's there's this thing coming from our conditioning where we're bummed about who we are. And yeah, there are these soft qualities of, like Nova said, we can go more into it in our deeper sessions when we have more time set aside. But there are some projector qualities that you can have with those projected channels, and that goes for anybody. And that I think most of the channels are projected in the body graph. So and it's why projectors are here to be leading in the hierarchy, because we can't really violate people, whereas manifestors can, and that's also why you don't have so much information about people, You just have like you just need the right information about people and about yourself, and vice versa, them about you. So, and I think that's where manifestors get a lot of dread about informing, because they can feel that natural protectiveness of their aura. But it's like, well, what does that person really need to know about? Like, I'm just not going to make it to this call today or whatever, or something about this feels off, or I'm going to the bathroom right now. And you're going to the bathroom to like deal with your feels and waft the other people off your aura. They don't need to know what you're doing in there. It's none of their business,
I just have to say thank you. Thank you for saying that. The first reading I had was with a projector who I paid lots of money to. And he said, my birth time, if you adjusted it 1 minute, I'm a projector. He said, I really think you're a projector. And I was like, oh, exactly. It was like really. And for like a week, he was like, I don't know, experiment with it. And after a week, I finally contacted him and was like, I want to murder people. Like, I am a terrible human being,
too,
and I'm not a projector. Like, 100% not.
I think it would be, I want to murder people, and I could.
Yeah,
It would be
and it scares me how, like, yes. So I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, look at my temperature rise. Can you see it? Like, oh, so good.
Yeah, I love that so much. I know we just had the Manifestor Women Retreat in Colorado a couple weekends ago, and when I was driving out there, it was like a 3-day drive. I was listening to Raw talk about manifestors the whole way, and I've listened to these audios before, but it's been a long time, and so it was really cool listening to them again. And I was like, I was listening to it, and I was like, yep, that's me. Yep, that's me. Yep, that's me. Whereas the first time I listened to them, I was kind of like, well, I don't know about that. Like, I don't get angry. Not that, I haven't listened to it since I do get angry, but there was all these other, things I was, trying to make myself feel instead of anger. And as I've really, really emptied out the shit that I am not and gotten really clear through my strategy and authority about who I am, I absolutely get angry, and I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, when I first found my chart, I was like, manifestor, I don't know about that. I was like, that's interesting, because my conscious channel, the only conscious channel I have is a mental projector channel. And my unconscious is where my manifestor lies. And so for me, finding out I was a manifestor, I was like, I don't know. And I'm like reading it to people, and they're like, duh, of course that's you. And I'm like, yeah. And then they're like, yeah, remember how you did da 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 da? And I'm like, oh shit, that is me. Like, that is definitely me. And but I mean, it took years to really like decondition the mental projector. Like, I'm not a mental projector. I'm not I am a manifestor. And then I'm a 1-3, so I had to do it all wrong. Like I said, I'm 10 years in. I still feel like a baby, because I'm just now feeling like I'm starting to do things right, because I've done all the things that didn't work. But I'm really clear about what does. Let me tell you, really clear about what does. And it's been a really interesting journey with it. But yeah, 1000% manifestor. And also for me, another part of it was I went to immersion back in December, which is aura experimentation for all types. So all types were there, and I'm watching generators and I'm watching projectors, and they're doing this very sexual auric experience thing in front of us, like the generator with their openness and the projector with their penetrating, and and they're being them, and I'm witnessing this for the whole weekend. And there was another manifestor and my reflector friend, and the three of us are just sitting there just watching them, like, wow, that's not me. That will never be
Get
me.
in there.
Like, I am not that. It's beautiful, but it's not me. Like, I'm good out here. I don't need to be yelling at that. Y'all are, this is great. Continue. But I was definitely clear that was not me. Like, first of all, I have never experienced the satisfaction that a generator experiences. And I've never experienced the success that Saeri, I just looked at you when I said it, that a Saeri experiences, that a projector experiences, right? I've never experienced that level of success. And then a couple of weeks ago, going to the Manifestor Women Retreat and being around Manifestor women. And I'm like, oh, this is what I am. This is 1,000,000,000%. This is definitely who I am.
And I was signed up for that retreat, and I had to stay home because my daughter was in the hospital. And
oh my goodness, yeah, I remember you.
I was so excited.
Right. Yeah. Well, we're definitely going to be doing more because it was such an incredible experience.
Well, I appreciate that very much.
The impact of you all getting together and experiencing your piece that deeply is like, I mean, I think it's pulled a lot of people in here, to connect them back in with the work.
Yeah.
I want to wrap up this call, but I also want to recognize, like, this is how this is working. Like, we can, we get to find out. I'm so glad we're doing this free week because we get to find out like what we're going to do in the course and navigate that way. And, we were talking a bit ago about, something about, I think, telling people about what we're doing and talking about it through generators, because that's most of the people. And I was like, actually, I really feel it's really powerful to talk about the minority, because those are the ones that stand out, that we're like, wait, this kid isn't working out like the way that, like, I'm asking them questions, I'm giving them the choices, and like they're just going freaking ballistic, and it's like, oh, you have a manifestor child and you need to know how to respectfully communicate with them while also keeping them safe as their parent, so like you don't want them just walking out the door and going to the park without telling you, right? Like they're 5. Like that makes our conditioning rise to say you have to control that child, and that's like the worst thing you can do with a manifestor. So anyway, I'm really excited to dig into this, and thank you, Stephanie, for coming forth with that question. And I think that's the only one we're going to get to today. But like, yes, please do write down your questions, send them to us. We're going to send out a survey that you can give us feedback in. You can give us your questions in there too. I think you have it set up for that, Nova. Yeah. And then you can also just bring them live. And if you can't make it to the live sessions, then send us your questions and we'll be able to address them. And I just can't wait to see the themes that come through here, because I know I already see, like, in the comments, there's the resonance and, oh my gosh, I understand that. And like this manifestor conversation is just like lighting a bunch of us up. So yeah, thank you, everybody. And I don't know, Noah, if you have anything you want to say to close us out.
I'm mostly just really grateful for this opportunity. I feel like, it is just such an honor and a pleasure to get to do this work. And I just feel so grateful for everybody that made it, everybody that listens to the recording. I'm just grateful for each one of you for making this possible for me to get to do my impact thing that I'm here for. We're all made for different things, and it's just so incredible when we get to do it. So thank you. And I look forward to hearing your feedback about it so that I can refine my third line experience and continue to impact more powerfully. So thank you.
Yay. Yum. And it also occurred to me, the emails that you're on the email list for this particular offering. So you can always reply to that email and that'll go into my inbox. So I don't know, sometimes if there's too many steps, I'm just like, I kind of short out and I can't do it. So you're welcome to send me. I'm not super great at it and I don't have an assistant right now, but you can do it. And I think I'm getting better. So it should work. Or Facebook Messenger. All right. Bye, beautiful people.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. And you've got the recording going, love.